Shirley here with Jupiter point of Thales. And we are in a Mercury day with ascendant applying to Aldebaran, so it's a good time to call on Archangel Michael to support us and help us to win over any darkness, whether within or outside. Um, and Mercury 9 degrees Pisces. This lovely uh, aspect here. It is squaring Jupiter. I'm squaring the ascendant um, and the Sun hour. So Sun is 0 degree Pisces. I actually wanted to talk about to give a couple of good words for the Piscean Sadasatis. Um, so Sadasati is basically when Saturn is going over your natal moon and is known to be one of the most challenging times that you have in life. Um, no less than Saturn return and Saturn maturation. Um, Sadhasati is challenging because um, Saturn rules boundaries, delays. Saturn's job is to set something in stone. Also, it rules rocks. And granted that it's not you, um, that could support you with your legacy. Okay, Moon is a manifesting planet, but Moon is also your mother. It's your house. It's your emotional safety. The thing is, what Moon in Pisces is already very deep, sensitive. It is the sign of the ocean. So you could be experiencing, you could be so perceptive that even you can be in dissociation regarding what you perceive. Okay, because Pisces rules things that are so far away that you're like, what the heck is going on? And you see them maybe in dreams, in shades, in colors, and it's difficult for even you to transmit that sometimes into words. It's as you can see, it's fantastic for artists. For longevity, less so. Um, because the nervous system speaking, and we are at the age where nervous system, we understand importance of nervous system, and nervous system with the ocean, it has to continuously adapt. And while that can be a fascinating life experience, a very spiritual experience, even on a very mundane level, you think about those of you who are going on a yacht or on a boat, um, yes, then you think about what you experience at sea. Or even if you take a swim, if you take a swim in the sea or in the ocean, the level of disorientation that you can get into is quite quickly, okay? But also the fascination. I've had experiences just a few meters from the shore that were downright philosophical and spiritual. Pisces also rules feet, fishes, lungs, and yes, also alcohol, liver, drugs, both recreational and prescribed. Um, a healing by chance can happen, but also not knowing where you wandered into. Okay, um, and so with the moon there, it is already very fascinating, creative, artistic. Um, Downright wonderful. It does not. You're not exempt from the more darker realities: grief, loss, helplessness. Um, in the face of those, helplessness in the face of what is happening in the world. Okay, we think about Pisces as what the hidden type of assets, which is the crimes that is hidden from the eye, and the type of thing that doesn't seem to get karma. Okay, or by the time it gets karma, it sometimes feels like too little, too late. So um, that is Yes, that is something that can be associated with Pisces in general. Pisces moon here going through Sadasati is addition of Saturn. Now Saturn is about building something that is standing the test of time. Okay, when it comes to the moon, it tries to build something where the quality of Saturn, which is qualities of austerity, they're not so compatible with the nature of the moon. Okay, so while people want to build, let's say, emotional resilience with Saturn in a hard aspect, in conjunction, you cross the threshold of emotional resilience into this downright inhumane. And and because this is experience of all sadhasati, but in Pisces is even more so. And and that can give some sort of a reality check to something that should not be given reality checks to. Okay, if you think about the moon as housing, or the moon as nurturing, or the moon as parenting, or being a mom or a caregiver, or the mother father. I'm working with Deneb Algedi, so Deneb Algedi is considered the mother father or the father mother. Okay, the lunar, the embracing father. The first Deneb Algedi and a Formalaut could be of assistance to you at this time, um, where you can address the archetype of Saturn from a more amiable way. It is not lovey-dovey, but is still way better than just Saturn. Of course, we've been honest here. It alleviates some of the darkness of the helplessness, but not all of it. So I'm not saying this savior. Um, but yes, we have to be honest with Saturn in Pisces. You're getting reality checks or something that shouldn't get reality checks. Okay, you think about yes, if a person already feels helplessness, comes Saturn and wants to build something now that stands the test of time. And this is, of course, some people can lose for the mom. I want to mention that. I'm not saying for every case. Saturn in Pisces already, Saturn rules the father. So Saturn Pisces can already, if it is like Saturn return, can mean losing of a father. Um, but Sadasati can mean, not in all cases, losing a mother figure, or your biological mom or your mom, or whoever is your caregiver. So this is not impossible, and it's important, yes, to understand. Um, but another thing with Sadasati is that um, moon is creativity, so perhaps the remedy is to do creative project. You might not feel so creative, um, but if you even can somehow express yourself artistically, that can be of tremendous help. When I had Sadasati in Cancer, I'm going to talk about the nature of this transit in a minute. But when I had Sadasati in Cancer, I was feeling very helplessness, going through almost deed-like symptoms, um, and but basically I began to write a poetry. And for one of the people that saw for my poetry was very likely MK Ultra veteran. It said he was a veteran, and not only could relate to me emotionally, but I later got help from veterans that talked to me about being active regarding for what happened, and I still do that today. And um, and the fact that it would lead to assistance of rape victims being curated, in the sense that you have to understand you're not to blame for what happened to you. Okay, because it is important to understand what happened to you was wrong. So some people have spiritual bypass to think that this is right at war, and I see them sometimes taking actions that perpetuate their suffering. Um, but and again, it's not about blame and shame. It's a coping mechanism. It's there to save you for something. But another thing is important is to understand you're not to blame for what happened to you, um, and to understand that what happened to you, yes, was wrong, but also to understand that things that you did under certain circumstances that are inhumane and perhaps border mind control. Okay, if you committed something, if I'm talking about veterans here, but it's not impossible also for victims of sexual violence, that to understand is where you understand what happened to you was wrong, and for it causes a situation where you're more susceptible to mind control, and that is can lead to behavior that is uh, people say maladaptive, but it's actually very adaptive. You're adapting to a situation. You're doing the same thing in insane atmosphere. So this is something that you want to take into account, and with Pisces even more so. Okay, and so your creative expression, especially if you go for you don't keep it to yourself, can connect you with the hearts of people, and also downright assist you. Okay, because it has curative ability of the people. What you write to yourself might be very curating for um, other people, and whether it's about the loss, about the grief, but also of the more challenging things. And the wonderful thing with Pisces and Neptune is that you can write a fictional story. Okay, so there are certain things that you're afraid if you talked about, they're still not considered, still not accepted, they still could be used against you. So writing fictional story can be appropriate for this. Okay, so not all is documentary. What you need to express, write fictional story, you declare is fictional. Okay, so to cover yourself for what you need, and that can connect you. I do see it happening with the Neptune Rahu, but that can connect you with, first of all, a lot of people that are going through the same thing and are isolated. Your readers or viewers, or if you do art, um, they can you can be very connected with what you do, and that can be an outlet that is important. Now we're going to get to the nitty gritty of what is the nature of this of the water sign Sati. Saturn rules time. Water sign is a malleable, a liminal space. The action of time, okay, boundaries, time, um, but also traditions on the psyche. So we are talking about Saturn also rules, to be very honest, courses. Um, when we talk about Saturn that was in Cancer, it would only be at the Me Too, where we would have Rahu and the Venus retrograde in Leo, that it was a solar, solar quality, that people began, while Pluto was in Capricorn, to talk about the word gaslighting. And then by time Rahu moved into Cancer, then even if your psychologist was gaslighting you, it was less successful to convince you that you are crazy. Okay, and if they don't manage to convince you that you are crazy, then it's going to be little by little very difficult to convince other people, and you will know that if some people are supposedly convinced that you are crazy, that they are also with that, okay, with that which you are tending to, um, And again, the more power they try to use against you, the more you understand the point of weakness um, in that regard. So um, Saturn Sadasati, it can be some sort of courses to do for with your sanity, your moon, your upbringing, and so on. Um, but it is also important to understand that this is an astrological transit. Okay, it's not impossible that you might be breaking these courses, um, and it's something that if it begins, it takes time to understand what happens. This is why a lot of the things that we haven't talked about up until now, since the 50s, okay. But definitely what we had in last 28 years, so we had emotional intelligence, we had the border between the socialism and individualism, okay, for the dissolution of the USSR. We had, yes, the Me Too. And Me Too is important to note. It's both the Jay-Z that was coming against the R. Kelly, but also it's easy to remove diplomatic immunity, and that's what they did to Julian Assange. And this is how he got to Belmarsh, okay? He didn't get asylum because he was accused of rape of two women, and that alone was enough to remove any diplomatic immunity, even as journalist. And that's how he got to Belmarsh for 5 years. Recent, less compassion-provoking stories, the Andrew and Tristan Tate. Yes, we must understand they were born into some sort of death cult, and Andrew Tate was boxer, and in death matches, not WWF, but he could die at every match. You either kill or be killed. And then, so to do human trafficking for him was improvement in condition. But then, for the age of the women began to decline, so it became Epstein-like, and so it got for the okay for the situation. He never had ability to act, the right to exit violence, because they go in debt cult, which is important. It's not that I'm here for the saying, oh, advocating for this. No, I care deeply about ending issues of child trafficking, of human trafficking, and from that perspective, I try to understand why this happens, and then to find points of interferences that people will not have to do these crimes, because definitely what we are called monsters is designed, okay, and. That, first of all, can retrieve a lot of our faith in humanity. Yes, it's not that people cannot be good or bad or something like that, but definitely what people call a lot of the what we were grown to think, the individual that does the this and that, and how could they, and they say, well, I did it because I can or because I could get away with that, is by design. The torture since birth, a lot of people and infants die, and then for the torture until person agrees to do that, unless they have a handler that smuggles them out, like Anneke Lucas, and I highly recommend to listen to Anneke Lucas' podcast um, if you can. It sheds light on the topic in a way that is respectful, both towards people in these death cults um, and also towards survivors. And it's not for nothing her book is called The Quest for Love. So um, with sadhusati, those things, they reach your housing, they reach your mother, they reach you as a mother. I can think of colleagues that have that, and yes, it's like it's by chance, but I can understand that MK Ultra got to their doorway, or they thought they did something very, very unique. They dream about something and so on. It's indeed very unique. It relies on tradition that was also practiced by these death cults and the MK Ultra, and that of course has implications that now they have to deal with. Um, and that can also be manifestation of this sadhusati. Okay, it is uh, um, you created something, and then you have for the implications of for what you created. Actually, I was editing my mother's second book, but when I had sati, and I was editor, and it was after I wrote a lot of things myself and not published most of them. But I came there from a point where I could dedicate myself to edit her book, and mostly corrections of grammar. That's not much. It's a very easy, very fascinating book to read. We are still, until today, dealing with the implications of that book. As far as she was concerned, she wrote a fictional book. And I also want to give a word of caution, because I said you want to write a fiction and so on. Um, then yes, but the fact it is fiction, you declare legally that this fiction is not going to be making you exempt from from whatever individuals deal with regarding that. Um, and this is have some fantastic stories. They would do very crazy making things, like just to put something that was one place in another place, and they would do it to a Virgo stellium. But the good thing is that the Virgo stellium learned a little bit for relaxing. For something was here, then it's there. It's okay if they did that. But the number of times where I would be asked is, "Did you Shirley? Did you put it there?" And I'm sorry. I'm a Scorpio and Taurus, so in the Sagittarius 10th house. So I would think about the big problems of the cosmos, and then somebody asked if I put this here or there, and I said, for damned, I don't know. So I was not very helpful in that regard. When that began to happen to me, suddenly began to notice that, which I never noticed. So I was like, okay, that's the same thing as it's just intergenerational right now. Um, but that is, and they do funny rituals. So that is just so. Um, but the work of Saturn for the Sadhasati, Saturn Pisces, yes, it's that Alice in Wonderland. It's that type of programming. Um, and the point is to create dissociation, okay? And this is when it's the moon, it's at your door. So whether you are a mother or you lose your mother there, or it's happening to your mother, or it is housing as well, but also creative projects. Okay. Yes, a moment of silence for the people who did any version of Thema Mundi this time when Saturn is in Pisces. Um, I had to remove courses from my own talisman, which, yes, I purchased. And And then okay, very frankly, Israelis are very frank, and I'm half Dutch, even more direct. I say, well, this is, you have to, maybe this is why you were accused of this or that, that I'm sure it's not coming from you. But this is MK Ultra Classic for this thing. And indeed, I felt in energy they tended to that. Okay. Yes, Will, I cannot beat them. Okay. Wonderful. So it's that person that managed to park their car in a way that an entire airport has to have a calling for. So yeah. Um, More about the sadhasati. Um, Definitely, you will be. It's those facets of reality that we've not been talking about. Now they become apparent. Now, because it's hard aspect to your moon, these aren't necessarily things that you haven't dealt with. So you could have been programmed but dissociated from that, and now you understand that you're programmed. Okay, you have to ask yourself, how do I deprogram? Which means you may not have with Neptune effect here, you may have less access to memories than other things, um, and uh, and unfortunately, I have to inform you that when it comes to healing professions, is Saturn Sadasati usually is where you. The thing is that there is karma for these professions. Okay, so a psychologist has archaic views; they have to renew. Saturn Moon. You want to think about it like a planet has a Kazimi when they conjunct the Sun. So Saturn Moon is being transformed and informed about what the structure or the sciences of the psyche. So the psychology has to have an update. Now, because it's happened per natal chart, all other people can get good therapy, and you feel like no good therapy. Um, and that can be what a sadisty. When I first we found the owner of the Nissan. Yes. So anyway, so what I want to tell you about this, when I had my sadisty, I went to psychologist. He said, but everybody has a little bit of emotional extortion here and there. Okay, and she used that word, this phrase. But in relationship, people do emotional blackmail, emotional extortion a little. No, that was not what the situation was. And at the same time, she saw that I'm in a situation. Then you go to psychiatrist and they say, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. These are the pills. You toss the pills in the bathroom because somehow you said, well, I do want to, to choose life. If I take all these pills, I will both not die and have permanent brain damage, perhaps. So, not useful and not useful. My parent told me I had healing powers in my hand at the time, so I don't know, but it's gone. I have no idea what it was, um, uh, but uh, but that was a situation where you go for all the people, take responsibility over your emotional life, and your psychologist doesn't know shit from their lives, and your psychiatrist just try to push you drugs above and below the counter. So now you ask for what is the question. Yes. But another thing that happened to me during the sadhasati is that I curated my allergies. I moved out of the city, and I had no job, so I edited my mother's book, and this is what it was. So, so I curated my allergies, but then I got almost did like a thing that there was no way on earth to go to seek help. Um, and it's only because of veterans and even when we talk about like people talk about rape or physical rape, I try to see for what helps people there. I found out there's no no help. So for had the questionable honor to be of the pioneers that leading to bringing information from around the chakras and around conventional medicine, around psychology, and comprising for paths to curation. It's not as doctor or anything like that. It's just knowledge from it. You gather from here, you gather from there. You try to apply, try to help people. Then suddenly you need help. It's just there was nothing. Okay, and by the time that there was something, there was nothing. Because now we get for the sadhasati of Pisces. So I caution you, but don't do my mistake now because now it's even more difficult. If back then they would say good morning, good evening, goodbye, here are your pills, today they have for the other things. And I strongly encourage you to listen to satanic ritual abuse survivors. When they talk about therapy or going to a therapist, skip that part. Okay, I know it feels like, but it's not about not acknowledging or no, being ashamed of the no. It's because it's archaic to what you need, and being incredibly tender here. Archaic, I also mean Dr. Mengele. Okay, it's just not okay. Um, and yes, but also if they ask you to perpetuate something, then you have to understand, you know how this code works. If they ask you to do something, then they do this to you, even if they already did that to you before. That's normally Kiev is just like they removed diplomatic immunity from Julian Assange and from the Tates and so on. Um, So people say, oh, but they never got life sentences, they never got this, they never got. Andrew Tate himself say, well, your government can one day block your access to credit, to trade, to everything. And when people would find it difficult to listen to him because they say, but you are a criminal. And then what they conclude from that is that they will only do that to criminals. And while we definitely don't want money laundering done on human trafficking, if we could stop it at that juncture, that would be fantastic. You're pulling out more than the sum of money to buy a car. If you need 3 times to go to the bank in 3 consecutive days to buy yourself a lunch or coffee, then perhaps we've gone. I don't know if it's useful because those who launder money, they will go to the bank 3 times and they will launder the money. For you, on the other hand, will purchase less, people will purchase from you less, and you will be less involved in trade altogether, which might mean you will rediscover the night sky and the Starlink stars. Um, and This is also fantastic. Um, but yes, when you actually need to do something with your life, then it's problematic. They basically eliminate with the people more so than what people call criminals. Um, so more things about this sadhusati. Oh, yes, because we talked about organized crime and stuff like that, more Parisian stuff. You could be curing any type of addiction that you had up until now. Okay, for example, cancers tend to have allergies. I curated allergy. Okay, I moved out of the city, and I stopped taking the things they were giving me for allergy. They were drying for my system, and curated the allergy. Yeah, but then I got did like symptoms. So you'll definitely be curing one thing, but tending to another. And Pisces, yes, it does rule ailments that are difficult to diagnose. Courses, okay, might be something you want to check out. And we always send energy back to sender known and unknown. It's very important in that case. And if you ask to participate in organized crime or to go up rank in organized crime, um, yes, first of all, make sure you have what you need to kill yourself effectively, okay, without suffering. But secondly, remember that when you are escaping human trafficking, even if you're a man, they traffic also men. When you're escaping, you have diplomatic immunity. Okay, if you have to steal food or whatnot, okay, of course, I'm not saying it's easy. If you are doing, then you have no diplomatic immunity. And for those of you who are working in security or intelligence, whether double or not double, it's not, yes, it's not the court here. And some of the court is doing that as well. Um, so this is something that you want to keep in mind. I'm a great advocate in raising awareness without shame and blame so that we have more right to exit violence for people in general. Um, And yes, and unfortunately, I cannot promise anything. The topic is genuinely intricate, and when we talk about training people from the womb, which with torture and alternating and having them very dependent on emotional support, and then what the emotional support is provided with conditions and so on, it is indeed very, very challenging, and uh, uh, and I hope we will have a breakthrough. It's very likely to take time. Um, I do see it already being a wealth block in NATO, and eliminating the MK Ultra can be a great wealth. And I talked about that in other occasions. Neptune is going to ingress into NATO's chart. With Saturn, it's going to be loss of some funding, and we, with NATO, is going to need to do less of certain things, and develop, okay, well, things that are simple and effective. I was even thinking so much to the laughter gas, because Uranus is gas. It's going to be in Gemini's Mercury sign, is laughter, and the Neptune in Aries, so something innovative, funny, to use at war when you want to basically neutralize your enemy. So it's simple and it's very effective. Okay, they can do nothing. They're just laughing. They can do nothing. Okay, and this is incredibly effective, and it's also changing for the nervous system. So immediately the nervous system starts thinking towards remediation, towards peace, and towards a more amiable way for to make. So basically going to have lack of weapons. Neptune in Aries, we're going to have mythifying of war side by side with lack of weapons. So gas laughter is something that way better than anything viral or stuff like that that require a lot of control and management. We will have control, okay, with Pluto, with the sextile to Pluto in the beginning, but as my colleagues say, this bisextile is not going to last forever. Okay, it is the nature, and then it's going to go into the squares. Um, so yes, this is where I address the fact that with projects like MK Ultra, it is everlasting energy investments, and the soul only wants out. So this is how people manage to somehow get out of satanic cults. Those who have somebody that smuggled them or find a way out, or I don't know what. And yes, they're targeted individuals, but it's also for the rest of the lives of every single person. The soul will always want out. It's a lot of energy. It's not cost effective, not for Neptune in Aries. We're not going to have that type of money. Okay, it's going to be loss of resources, and that's one thing that the NATO can take out. It's also a wealth block. So if you invest in weapons industry, and for invest in NATO is also traded. So if you invest in those, then yes, fiasco like we had in the 50s, which is repeated. You see ultra everywhere, even the word ultra with the symbols, the butterfly, the cards, the Alice in Wonderland, the this, the that, all these things. A mockingbird with the social engineering. So, okay, nobody has a trad. Nobody wants to be a trad wife. Okay? No husband wants a trad wife either. Okay, if they know something about women, they don't want that. They rather not be poisoned by the wife. There's nothing nostalgic about that. Okay, so yeah, that's just one of the things I saw. The mob boss wife thingy, mob boss wife makeup trend. Okay, now some of the mobsters are gay, so I don't know. Yes, or two gender. Yes, I don't know how accurate is that, But you see, the social engineering is, of course, at this time is high. So creative expression. Uh, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. There's a reason why people, Indians, chant all day Hanuman, Hanuman, Jin, Jin, Hanuman, Jin, Hanuman, which is associated with Saturn to alleviate any challenges of sadhasati. So if you are chanting all day, maybe yes. Another thing, Saturn rules rocks and minerals, and the moon rules moonstone. Okay, so moonstone or rocks that are coming from the ocean, holding them like a talisman. You see if it works for you, um, particularly in areas that come from your moon line. That being said, you want to be very cautious because you could be bringing in the energy of Sadasati when doing that. So traveling to your moon line and stuff like that, you would be experiencing that the most. And I would also be cautious about, travel away from that. That would add another layer of sadhasati in a different house in your chart. Okay, for example, let me give you a joke. It's not for Americans. So close your ears, Americans. I have 22 little Mars in ninth house natally for in Israel. Then when I moved to Netherlands, I have it in the 11th house. So it's basically I have a 9/11 in my chart if I move to Netherlands because it's a layer that is added to the natal chart layer. Um, and indeed, when I was in Netherlands, by the way, one of the things that I was exposed to was the realities of 9/11. Some people thought it was fair trade. Um, But also, when it comes to such a thing, you understand entire aeronautic science think that satire has retired. And yes, I will not elaborate. So I just wanted to put some warm words out there. Now, it can be the case that with Moon, Pisces, Saturn, maybe because of your actions, maybe because of, I don't know, you've gotten to a situation where you've done some things that people would be. The challenge for people to have compassion towards you is real. In this case, perhaps tending to foam out and then have algedy can slowly begin to alleviate that. There can be a block of empathy towards you. Because Pisces rules empathy and Saturn is a block of empathy. There could also be some sort of reality check to what should not have reality check is with your empathetic abilities, or you have increased empathetic abilities. Okay, because but they are due to trauma, so this is more like coping mechanism whereas hypervigilance, or something like that. If this is what you're curating, then it might be you're beginning to exit satanic cults. If this is the case for you, then I wish you a lot of success and a lot of help along the way. In the beginning, this would be a lot about you having to be in a situation of extreme isolation, okay, especially from society and so on. Um, so then a Balgidi can remediate. Hanuman Jin, if you are of Indian descent, or you can try that, the mantras of Jin Hanuman, probably not harmful. Um, yes, also formal out perhaps could be useful to you. It's not you, the deacon for the current sadhasati, but this can be, yes, useful. Um, and if there's a loss involved, then we are approaching what the opposition of Al Qaeda. And Al Qaeda is not Al Qaeda, but actually it is with the big bear. And Al Qaeda can be very, very benefic for you. Okay? I know Helwas Astro did a while ago an Al-Qaid talisman to process grief. So you might want to check this work out or prepare something with Al-Qaid, um, or contact the big bear, okay, if you see her in the sky, and assist you to ask protection to process grief. If you need to travel, because Saturn can actually mean you do travel, especially with the moon. Okay, sati might mean you it's karma for you to travel, but with Saturn it's challenging. It's not travel that is easy for you, it's more is fated for you. Okay, and can be even around death. So you want to have Al Qaid support you, or to psychic protection, especially when you go through tremendous loss or grief. Then usually what they want is to recruit you in those situations. Then it's more risk for the addictions, alcohol, drugs, prescribed or not. I invite you to listen to Dr. Joseph. It's just Dr. Joseph on YouTube about the reduction of psychiatric drugs if you are taking them. Um, be extremely cautious, especially if you have a moon that's closer to the end of Pisces, where it's going to sextile Neptune. Be extremely cautious of those promising treatments that are electric, okay? Especially if you're a night chart. If you day chart, maybe it can work for you, but you want to be very cautious and you want to never go there alone. And you want to be with people you trust, which is not so compatible for Sada Satya, I'll be very honest. But there's nothing more invasive to the brain than electric okay, so to mess with that, the electrodes to your brain. Um, uh, and this is important because it's marketed as innovative new treatment. Um, okay, be very cautious around that. The Chinese call the computer electric brain for a reason. Our brain itself is, okay, is running on electricity. Okay, basically it's wave and frequencies. This is how people get to do mind control, but also this is how we caretake for our nervous system. And so you may begin to learn about science of nervous system. So positive fungi like a lion's mane, which is also associated with Denebalgidi. By the way, I didn't know that. I began to buy a good fungi for Denebalgidi, and it was lion's mane. And then apparently, Majoram is also associated with Denebalgidi. Do be cautious with Majoram. It affects your thyroid. Okay, Majoram and basil, essential oils, affect your thyroid. So you want to just make sure that this is okay for you. But also, so Measuram, and what else? Yeah, wormwood. Perhaps you would want to carry with you talismanically. I'm not saying ingest. Um, Saturn moon. Well, if you have, let's just say, the current healing practices of the people that you go to are archaic. Okay, so it means that you are, yes, it's not, it's terrible to say you're on your own here, but this is where you learn to care for self. But with here in this particular moon sign, in conditions that are unfortunately quite inhumane. Okay, so it's like people say that it's emotional resilience. No, it's what people call today emotional resilience. They will call abuse in so and so decades, but now we're not in those decades. Um, so you're required to do some self-care and think with, let's say, even what I told you about Measuram or Wormwood. Okay, you have to think for yourself, and maybe it's working for you, maybe not working for you. Tinctures also, there is something to do with Saturn. And again, it's time where you might be even preparing these things. Even if you do magic, astrological magic, this may be time where you're preparing for yourself certain things. Um, Psychology, okay? Now you might be learning some, the psychology is updating itself in regarding to your, okay, to your issues. So what once was considered one type of therapy, you will see that it's getting either less relevant to you, It's also by the merit of Neptune Rahu. And what the and you might, with through your creative expression, you might come across people. Okay, also when I talk about PTSD, for one of the people said, well, I have no PTSD because I don't feel guilty for what I did in the army. If you feel guilty, then you have PTSD. Yes, I would later hear that from someone that gives stage without anything to the beliefs like rape is okay at war, which of course MK Ultra works on rape and electrocution. So he may be not thinking he has PTSD or not thinking of sleeping well at night, and he was very concerned all the time to actually be active about what gave him trauma, which is to change a certain reality, but he was still working with those practices that are malefic to humanity. So, or supportive of those practices are malefic to humanity. And yes, and moody from here until tomorrow. Also cancer, so you can't say if it's. But people say it's natural for cancer. I say no. Cancer is absorbing of environment, so it's not the cancer. It's not the cancer's problem. It's what we have in the environment. It is a cancerous problem, and also environment problem. But they are more absorbent of that than other people. That and your cancer placements. Okay, which, by the way, can be the source of lack of support. Because if your surroundings is affected by it's having secondary trauma, they might not be able to help you so much. Um, Saturn now rules over Pluto, so again, good fun guy, and I'm not saying necessarily psychedelic, like you could actually have a reality check to that, um, but also good. Maybe some talismans that you prepare, but also essential oils that are accommodating for nervous system, um, particularly rose oil. Okay, rose oil. I find that even people take SSRIs or whatever doctor prescribes, or sleeping pills, and then they're sleeping so very tightly, both above and below. Then rose essential oil, they can alleviate that without getting you into the pitfalls of later doing things that yes, that you will have another 28 years to sort yourself out of. So, um, other good essential oils that you want to check. Um, whether you're gonna see what sense are you drawn to. Some sense can bring some emotional. So you want to be very cautious. In general, it's emotional. If you ask what is a grounding for Pisces, then even Bach flowers can be okay. I'm not certified in that, but you might want to go for to see Bach flowers. And anyway, you have to sift and sort, because what the spiritual notions that they tell you might not be yes so true. Okay. For example, when I was going through rape, okay, for this energy rape, this rape, that rape, if the person is going through deed and go all the things the person experiences rape, I think it's okay to call it in its name. Um, and somebody told me you needed to learn how to say no, but I very clearly stated my no. That was it was a woman. Okay, so she was trying to find like spiritual meaning. Well, the tinctures she gave, I think, were good, but then this is sati. Okay, this is it's dumbfuckery, it's dumbfounding. By the way, I was going through acupuncture, and I had channelings from people who are martial artists. That was something good, but my parent thought that it was bad, that it made my situation worse. But I could actually rest. But and this is also sati, okay? It was like, oh, that thing a little bit helps me to calm down and relax. But then your parents said, oh, but now they're even worse. They're so tired, they're so this, they're so, yes, because they need rest. They went through something that the soul is not even supposed to go through. And it's no meaning for that, for they had to say this, but no, that's not. Um, So yes, there's definitely nothing wrong with asserting boundaries, but if you clearly stated your boundaries and you see something like that, um, then that is not helpful. It's not the case. Um, you will be surprised where help is coming from. Neptune and Pisces is a sign of miraculous healing. You would be completely surprised where help is coming from. Okay, so this is something. That I have to say uh, um, is something you are not quite okay. When I was writing a poetry and I was escaping a situation of, I said, just like, cannot say physical rape, or what is this, or what is that. Veterans, of course, veterans knew that because they went through rape and electrocution for the MK Ultra in the 50s. So I was writing their soul. Um, and I still get that with veterans that are looking that talk about the shame they had about excitement and arousal and misplaced arousal, that they don't even know the term misplaced arousal, and so on, and they think nobody would understand them. And even when they deal with women who escaped let's say violent husband or something like that, then they say, well, yes, but for me sometimes I feel like I miss what the excitement. And some women have this too, okay? But it takes a lot of time to rewire the nervous system because you never knew peace, especially if you never knew peace. So it's something it's a sensation you've never known. It's a sensual experience you never know, but it's also a hard experience you've never known. And so what they wouldn't imagine, and then what the women were like, my God, and some tremendous um, uh, um, bonds are created between these sectors. There's a lot of social engineering done to separate that, especially where a lot of the rights of the brotherhoods is feminification as humiliation, and this makes men. It makes it challenging for men to both be emotional, speak about their feelings, but also to recover from being victim of sexual trauma, which means it makes them more susceptible to be mind controlled because it's done to cause, okay, mind control and programming. And I talked in another video about the job of the Centaurian and reality check to that, address Kissinger and so on. So it's a very challenging job, but for the Centaurian to be trusted, they have to commit a lot of crime, okay, a lot of unnecessary crime. And one of the things that I do here with astrology is take a look, realistic appraisal of like if there's going to be war, it's war on resources, what's going to be, and so on and so forth. So to increase awareness and alleviate archaic notions about war that are either too simplistic or in the sense of. But I also tend to say that why are we fighting and so on and so forth, but also alleviate the cults of the need to have extortion and cults of extortion to trust people, which doesn't generate trust. And a lot of people that are assigned to be centurions by the blood type or bloodline, they reach a certain age where they don't live to 100, and it's usually because of what they had to do to live to 100, even if they have families, so like a Shinzo Abe and other figures. Then they do something or they say something that they know is a death sentence to them, because then at least they don't have to do all these horrible things. And this is also reality check on current job of the Centaurian. We are in changing times, so we're also going to be changing. Okay, the Centaurians that were between the Second World War and for today, but not the Centaurians that will have with the bisextile but to other. And looking at the next century is something interesting, and I might be tending to that more as astrologer. So the more people are aware of this information, the easier the job of the centurion, and the less they need to be extorted and hide things from the public, supposedly for the sake of their security. Um,